Rahul stood barefoot on the cracked edge of his father's abandoned plot, half an acre of dry, stubborn soil that hadn't seen a harvest in years. He was 23, fresh out of a 2-year job hunt that yielded nothing but rejection emails and the echo of city horns. Now, back in his village, he faced a different kind of noise, laughter. Engineer turned farmer, his cousin snorted, tossing a stone into field. The others joined in, their voices a blend of mockery and disbelief. They had left long ago for factories and taxes, chasing salaries under city lights. To them, farming was a fallback, a failure. But Rahul saw something else. Every morning, he scribbled notes while watching YouTube tutorials on organic composting, crop rotation, and companion planting. His phone, cracked and overheating, became his mentor. By midweek, he had cleared weeds, broken the hardened earth, and bartered a deal for spinach seeds with a shopkeeper who doubted he'd ever return. The first week tested him. The soil drank water like a desert, but gave back nothing. His back ached from hours of digging and tilling under the sun. His neighbors watched silently, waiting for him to quit, to prove them right. He didn't. On the 12th day, green shoots pierced through the dirt like tiny rebellions. Rahul knelt beside them, brushing the leaves with reverence. They weren't just plants, they were proof. Months passed. He installed a makeshift irrigation system from salvage pipes. He learned to make compost from kitchen waste. And he tracked market prices, realizing spinach had a short cycle and high turnover. When the crop matured, he bundled it neatly and walked 10 kilometers to the town market. At first, the vendors dismissed him. Too clean, too quiet. But one elderly woman agreed to try his produce. She returned the next week with her son, asking for more. By the end of the season, he had sold out 3 times. Word spread. Locals came by to see his methods. Even his uncle, who once scoffed at his efforts, asked if Rahul could teach his son. He saved every rupee, reinvested in tools, and rented another plot nearby. Still modest, but his vision had expanded. Standing at the edge of the field one dusk, watching the sun cast long shadows over the green waves of spinach, Rahul smiled, not in triumph, but in quiet defiance. Success hadn't come in acres. It had sprouted in persistence, watered by self-belief and the refusal to give up when the soil offered nothing in return. Meera stood at the edge of the land her husband left behind, 3 silent acres bruised by years of neglect. The monsoons had come and gone, but the earth remained stubborn, cracked like parched skin, unwilling to yield. A widow at 36, with 2 school-going children and mounting debts, she had no time for grief. She needed a harvest. She borrowed seeds from a local trader, okra, chilies, and brinjal, and planted them in neat rows. Every morning, she walked through the field with a bucket in one hand and a prayer in the other. She watered, weeded, and waited. But when the sprouts came, they curled at the edges like dying hopes. Villagers offered sympathy and superstition. "Bad luck," said one. "Maybe the land is cursed," said another. But Meera didn't believe in curses. She believed in answers. One afternoon, while collecting firewood near the bus stand, she overheard a group of young farmers talking about something called soil testing. Curious and desperate, she followed them discreetly to the Kwishi Kendra in the next town. There, a soft-spoken officer explained the basics: pH levels, nutrient balance, nitrogen deficiency. Words she'd never heard, but they lit something in her mind. He handed her a small kit. "Bring a sample," he said. "Let the land speak." Back home, she scooped soil into a torn plastic bag and returned the next day. The results came in 2 weeks later. Her soil was acidic, low in nitrogen, and completely lacking in organic matter. No wonder nothing had grown. For the first time, Meera saw the problem wasn't her. It was the unseen chemistry beneath her feet. She sold her silver bangles to buy cow dung and neem cake. She dug pits, mixed compost with ash and leftover rice husks, and gave her land a second chance. It wasn't glamorous work. Her hands blistered, her back burned, but the soil softened, grew darker, richer. By the time she planted again, the rains had returned. This time, the shoots came up strong, standing tall like green flags in the wind. Her chilies turned red early, her okra long and crisp. At the market, buyers asked where she grew them. She smiled but didn't explain. Not everyone listens to soil. By season's end, she had paid her children's school fees in full and tucked away enough to hire help next season. She even returned the seed she had once borrowed, with interest. Her land, once a burden, had become her partner. Javid leaned against the wooden gate of his tomato field, arms crossed, eyes sharp. The plants were healthy, lush vine pregnant with red, plump fruit. It was the best yield he'd had in years. Still, his chest felt heavy, not proud. He had been farming for 2 decades. His father before him, his grandfather before that, and liked them. He planted tomatoes in June and harvested in September, just like everyone else in his village. It was tradition, yes, but also routine. Now, with crates stacked in the back of his pickup truck, he drove to the central market. The road was familiar, but the destination no longer offered the thrill it once did. By the time he arrived, the market was already flooded. Dozens of farmers unloading the same crop, shouting over each other for a better price. Buyers, knowing their advantage, lowballed every offer. Javid sold his entire lot at a price so low it barely covered his fuel and labor. That night, over dinner, his teenage daughter Mahaz asked, "Why not grow something else? Or sell somewhere new?" He chuckled. This is how it's always been. But the laughter didn't linger. Her question stayed in his mind. A few days later, she showed him a Facebook post about a farming workshop in a nearby town. Reluctantly, he agreed to go. It was there that his world shifted. He listened as a young farmer from another state explained the concept of stagger planting. "Don't harvest when everyone else does," the man said. "Harvest when the market is hungry, not full." He also learned about direct-to-consumer selling through WhatsApp groups and small retail shops. Don't just grow. Build relationships. People pay more when they trust where their food comes from. Javid returned home and broke his routine for the first time in 20 years. The next season, he divided his plot into 3 sections. Instead of planting all at once, he spaced the sowing out by weeks. He contacted a few grocery stores in town, offering fresh, pre-sorted tomatoes delivered right to their door. Mahaz helped him design a simple label with his farm's name and contact number. By the time the village's main harvest flooded the market, Javid had already sold 2/3 of his crop, at nearly double price. Shopkeepers started calling him directly. Customers asked if they could buy in bulk. Other farmers came to see his planting schedule, curious but skeptical. Javid no longer waited for the market to come to him. He had learned to meet it halfway. Kofi rose before the sun, as he always had. The rooster hadn't even crowed when he stepped into his boots and walked toward the same stretch of land his grandfather once tilled with oxen. The soil was warm, familiar, and stubborn. For Kofi, farming was memory, unchanged, unquestioned. He planted maize, watered it by hand, and trusted the skies to know when to rain. But over the years, the skies had stopped listening. Yields fell, costs rose. Still, Kofi held on to tradition like a worn prayer. His daughter, Emma, watched silently. She had studied agricultural science at the university. Her hands were softer than his, but her mind moved faster. One evening, as they sat over roasted groundnuts, she said, "Papa, the land is tired. We need to treat it differently." He frowned. The land needs patience, not gadgets. Emma didn't argue. Instead, she invited him to a small tech fair hosted by her university. Kofi hesitated, then relented. He thought he'd walk among booths and return unchanged. But something shifted. He saw solar-powered irrigation kits that used less water and saved time. A young man demonstrated a phone app that tracked weather patterns with startling accuracy. Another offered a sensor that alerted farmers when the soil needed nutrients. All of it felt alien, until he imagined what it could do for his failing fields. Back home, he agreed to try one thing: drip irrigation. It was cheap enough, thanks to a government subsidy, and Emma helped set it up. Pipes stretched across the maize rows, delivering water directly to the roots. No waste, no guesswork. Within weeks, the difference was visible. The plants stood taller, leaves greener, and the soil remained moist even under the harsh sun. Encouraged, Kofi subscribed to weather alerts and adjusted his planting calendar accordingly. He tested his soil with a digital reader Emma bought online, discovering it lacked potassium. He added what was needed. That season, his yield tripled. The neighbors noticed. One came asking about the pipes. Another asked about the app. Soon, Kofi, once the man who clung to old ways, was sharing digital tips with younger farmers beneath the same mango tree where elders once gave advice. He had an abandoned tradition. He had strengthened it. On harvest day, he walked the field with Emma beside him, both in silence, both smiling. The maize swayed and rose like soldiers, strong, tall, alive. Kofi had finally understood. Wisdom wasn't refusing change. It was knowing when to welcome it.